you for being here. I'm excited to be actually able to present this presentation because you're the very first one to hear it. This is the first version or the first iteration of this presentation, Higher Than High. It's just an incredible topic. It's been in my heart for a while now. And finally, here we are. By the grace of God, we're able to actually put it together and present it to you all. When you see the title, Higher Than High, when you look at it, what's the first impression you have? What's the first thing that comes to mind? We're going to talk about renewing the mind. I know that kind of gives it up, but I want you to think for a minute what comes to mind, because that's the first question I have. I want you to think about higher than high, renewing the mind, conformity versus transformation. This is the theme that we're going to be looking at and talking about in somewhat a different way throughout the presentation. So as I said, what comes to mind when the term higher than high or high order thinking is used? I don't know if you've heard it before. What exactly does that mean? How's that related to the renewing or the renewal of the mind? Higher than high, what does it mean to you? The very first thing that comes to mind. With that thought process, I'm just gonna go in and give you the basics, just a foundation. Every word that we use has a meaning. Every term that we apply to a concept, to a knowledge, to anything at all, it has a meaning. And meanings evolve. We know in English, as well as in Amharic, any language that is spoken, we know for sure that the meaning of it evolves. What certain terms and certain words meant many moons ago, a few years back, it may not mean the same thing today. And when we hear high today, even higher than high, what comes to mind? It's called etymology, right? So the original meaning of the word has evolved. The original meaning of high, the height, like something is really tall, something is really high, it's a high building, just to mean that, face value high, or exalted, sublime, illustrious, important, proud, deep, right? And then when you look at a dictionary meaning, it also means great, more significant than normal, in size or intensity, high point, high level, high something, a very notable time or occurrence or experience, a moment that made somebody feel sort of, like that euphoria, that high, that wow, that awe. So the term high is being used for that. Think about for a moment when in your lifetime felt that feeling. Wow, like you were in awe. It might be excitement, it might be happiness, it might be anything at all. Just think about that feeling. Okay. And then there is a biblical definition of the word high itself. Elevated, exalted in nature or dignity, magnanimous, a man of high mind, powerful, triumphant, glorious, under a divine protection, noble, honorable, a person or a man of high birth, powerful, mighty, possessing of supreme power, dominion, of excellence, superior. Oh, well, and then, over time, like I said, language has evolved. Words are kind of turning their meanings. What it was meant to be today, in the generation that we live, if you just say hi, depending on the context, you're using the term high, it might mean something. So the slang meaning of high is stoned, wasted, euphoric, elevating one's state of mind or altered mind, flying, doped, baked, canned, faded, lit, ripped, smoked, zoned. You see the difference from where the word originated to where it's at today. So when we hear these things, what do you think? How do you think the mind is contextualizing just a simple term as high? So today we're talking about higher than high. In life, through time, the term means something. It reminds us of something, depending on the context that is used, right? So today, it's a very huge and vast topic. I'm only going to focus on one aspect of it, because we're talking about the renewing of the mind. And the mind has, as we all know, three primary major functions: thinking, feeling, and wanting. There's more, but the primary basic function of a brain or our mind is to help us think, to help us feel, and want. In a nutshell, I want us to think about higher order of thinking as we go through how we're going to get to that higher than high point. How's our thinking shaped? And I just want us to think about higher order of thinking, deeper way of thinking, thought process. What exactly does that mean? What is this higher order thinking you're talking about? It's a thinking level higher than committing knowledge or information into memory, just reciting it, just disseminating it, just sharing it, just the way it was received. Something, somebody, somewhere has instilled, programmed words, terms, meanings, contexts, somehow in a lifetime. I'm using so many different words to formulate a sentence to actually bring a context. You've heard it somewhere else, you're going to hear it again someplace else, but then the context might be different. So when we talk about just spewing out or just repeating, just passing on information or knowledge or experience, face value, without me necessarily putting any context to it, that's not high order of thinking. I'm just saying, I'm just sharing, I'm just repeating without really putting any effort at all to the context. That is not higher thinking. But I want us to go into 3 different areas to set up the next maybe 2 or 3 slides for me. In what way do we want to think higher than high? So the first one is encoding, okay, schema, and then metacognition. 3 levels. The encoding type of thinking, or in a simpler word, indoctrinated thinking. This is something that, as a person, my personal persuasion, when I hear something, I know it means something. I have a concept, I have a context, I have an understanding of what something means. I have a value system, I have a belief system. When I hear something, when I'm introducing something, or when I'm actually sharing something, I come from my own context, from my own persuasion. And I want you to think about how we were raised, where we were raised, and all the different things, where you went to school, what you've studied, who you are as a person, how we think. Certain things, our thought process is programmed for us. Okay? It's a level of thinking that is not challenged. It's just something we embraced, something we accepted. It's programmed for me. There's no room for anything else but my own persuasion. Where it says learned thinking or schema, it's something very simple, but we've learned. We didn't spend too much time to think about what exactly does that mean. From a childhood, from when we were born, we were taught something, we learned something, whether somebody sat us down and actually taught us that thing, or just because we're human beings and we have perception, we see things, we learn things. These are learned thinking. We were taught somehow to think a certain way. It's a mental codification of experience in a particular organized way, perceived cognitively. It just generates a set of stimulus. So when a baby sees a bottle, it's very easy for the baby to put that bottle in the mouth. Learned thinking. There are good ways of thinking, thought processes. If it's that easy to grasp something and learn that easily, you can imagine what it's like right now at this age, what my thought process is, what I have learned. through life, through experiences, through good, bad, and ugly, right? And the other one we're going to talk about is intentional thinking. There are some things that, because they're learned, I don't have to think twice about it. It's just going to go. Some things I'm already programmed. I just do it. And then this one is intentional thinking. At this point, I'm like, I just recognized this is how I think. I just now know my thought process is as such. I learn by touching. I learned by listening. I learned by visual. I am this or I am that. So when somebody or something happens, before I just take it and respond to it, there's a level of thinking. So this level of thinking is an understanding of one's own thought process and pattern. Your thought process becomes intentional. You start engaging your own thought process. Because I know if I understood me and how I think, and I understand my own thought process, my reaction could be this way, my action can be that way, or I could just dismiss something. So I'm just going to use a very simple thing that we all know, Maslow's hierarchy, right? When I thought about how this concept I can explain to you guys, I tried so many different ways, but then when I finally sat down and looked at it, I'm like, perfect. Because all the different stages that we talked about, you can see it right here. So Maslow's hierarchy, right? The very bottom, your very basic needs. Anybody and everybody needs food, water, shelter. Basic. You just know the basic needs, the basic need. Somebody needs to eat. Somebody needs to have air. Somebody needs to have water. Somebody needs the basic need. Where'd that come from? And then the next level, in addition to my basic need, I'm going to need security and safety. I need to feel safe. It goes a little bit higher. And then it goes to even deeper, that more desire. I want to belong somewhere. I want to feel like I'm accepted. I am loved. That, like, the need for food, air, and shelter increases as we go up. But notice the pyramid gets smaller. Okay? I want you to notice that. The pyramid, as we go up, it gets smaller. And then there is esteem and need, accomplishment, prestige. Okay, I have my basic needs met. I feel secured to some degree. Okay, all right. People tell me I'm loved. I'm okay. I've got me some friends. I've got me some, like my parents and everybody else. Okay, I have that. Now I need to be accomplished. Now I am going up, and the next thing that my desire, my understanding, my thought process is, how am I going to get there? In my mind, when I see somebody in my understanding is accomplished, the next thing that somehow I'm thinking is, I need to be accomplished. I would like to have some prestige. That level is better for me, because now I'm not thinking about food every time. I'm not thinking about safety every time. I'm thinking about, okay, I got to go up. And now the next step is for me to say, look, I'm accomplished. And the very last thing Maslow talked about is self-actualization, which is, okay, you made it. You're one of the few people that could say, good for me, got it done. Self-actualized, you're taken care of. You got to the top of that mountain, like where you're saying, whew, made it. I want us to think about or look at this side of, or my life, my left, your right side of this pyramid. If you look at the bottom, I need to survive. That's the very first interpretation of understanding, the level of thinking. If I'm going to need to survive, I need food. That's it. When a child is hungry and a child cries, and when the child cries and you shove a bottle in his mouth, done. So the next thinking is what? Oh, okay, so that's how it works. I get hungry, I scream, I get food. We're learning. Now, Am I safe? Am I secured? Am I taken care of? Just a little bit of in-depth in the thinking process. When we look at the belonging and the love side, it talks about, so who am I? Because when you're thinking about who loves me, where do I belong? The question gets a little bit more complicated, a little bit more complex. There is an identity question there. Where do I fit? Talking about position. Am I loved? Self-worth. Now, that is a little bit higher and far deeper than, in order for me to survive, I got me some food. I got to make sure that I am eating. I got to make sure that I have a safe place. You see how the thinking gets deeper and deeper. But it's okay, because I'm a person. I am a very complex and complicated person. But then I'm not always like that. At some point, my thinking is becoming more compounded and more complex. It's getting deeper. Trust me, I'm not going to just talk about this. There's a reason why I'm taking a bit of time here. Then when it comes to esteem and needs, like the very thinking is, how am I going to get that prestige? How am I going to get to that level where I'm feeling like, okay, so I see so-and-so in my mind, that's what it means to be accomplished. That's what it means to get at that point. I want that for me. How am I going to get there? Once I get there, the question is, okay, so I'm here now, then what? What do I have to show for my life? The question is slightly different. The thinking is different. The self-actualization is where we're saying, okay, I made it to the top in my mind. And society says, by the time I got to that point, I made it, I'm accomplished, I am self-actualized. Then what? See, that's the height. That is the height. That is the high that we know, according to society. You can think about at what point, for what reason, have we felt like we've reached there, or have we? Let me take you back very quickly to this side. See what it says, the LLIII. So the first two levels, in my mind, it's probably more so like a learned thinking. We're learning to think that way. You need to be safe. You must be safe. If you are like me from Africa, past 6 p.m., when it's dark, you don't go out there. There is a hyena out there. It's dark now. You don't go by yourself. You see, we are learning to feel that fear. So that means, oh, I have to be safe. If you don't eat, you're going to get sick. If you don't eat, you're going to get skinny. Girl, eat. We're learning. Right? But then when you go up and when it comes to the belonging and the love and where do I fit, who am I, which class do I belong and what group do I belong, where in my community is my status and who, that is when conformity begins. Now we're looking at it from indoctrination, like that means I must be loved. And somebody should let me know that I'm loved. I should be made to feel like I am loved. I must feel this way because why? You know, we're programmed to feel that way. We're not just programmed to feel loved. We were created to feel loved because we are loved. The point is, where do you get that love? How do you get it? And how do you see it? And how do you process that? The whole esteem, prestige, accomplishment, and all that stuff, that's also indoctrinated. It's programmed. So what if I didn't do A, B, and C? Am I not accomplished? So what if I'm not doing what everybody else is doing? Am I not accomplished? So what if I didn't necessarily have 3 degrees? Am I not accomplished? So what if I don't have a big house? Am I not accomplished? So what if I don't have 2 cars or 3 cars parked right in front of my house? Am I not accomplished? How? Prestige, indoctrinated, framed, programmed. Of course, self-actualization, we know what that means. It's also being programmed. Oh, wow. In our community, and I'm not trying to minimize this, but in our community, when we talk about self-actualization, you made it to the top. You're one of the few that actually have done what anybody else just wants to get at. everybody else dreams to get at. You've gotten there. You have that. Okay. I fulfilled that expectation. See how we're framed? That process is actually structured. When people cannot get to that point, we all know stress, anxiety, depression, self-hate, low self-esteem, all kinds of things happen because our thinking is, I am not where I think I ought to be. So for that reason, people open up themselves for all kinds of things. And I want you to take a look at this side just for a quick second. See, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It goes higher. In our mind, we're programmed. The higher you go, the better it gets. But see where self-actualization is at? Look how tiny it is. It's about self. It's just about me. Just me. I am self-actualized. Just me. That is all there is to it. I made it. Then what? That's why I put there, I'm here now what? Am I looking down? Is there anybody else there? This is the fun part. So I inverted it when it comes to the intentional thinking, metacognition. The pyramid is inverted. In the Maslow's pyramid, as you go up, it gets smaller. It's just self right there. When you invert it, the thought process, the thing that was wide enough, that was the bottom line, without that, I can't think of anything else, all of a sudden now, shrank. You see where psychological need is? As my thought process gets deeper, higher, the stuff that makes me worry outside of that, like, how am I going to eat? Am I going to eat? If I don't eat, you see across it, it says trust. Who do we trust? Can we trust? Who do we trust? If I have trust, and it says a man shall not live by bread alone, but hearing that word of life. So when you have that bottom line to begin with, and your reference is, oh yeah, if God could give me this other thing, he can give me food. Your thought process is immediately to the next thing. You're not spending too much time thinking about, and I'm not saying we don't have people that don't have food or their needs aren't met. But our being is not founded and just laid out there at the bottom, right? That's not where we're at. As the thinking, the high level thinking goes up, the pyramid reverses. Safety. In the other side, the slide that we looked at, safety from mom, safety from dad, safety from siblings, safety from the people that surrounds us, from teachers and this, that, and yet, yes, we still have that. But then my safety, as my thinking goes higher and higher, my protection, I say, he who dwells in the shelter of Almighty will abide in the shadow of Almighty. Now all of a sudden I have a foundation. Now all of a sudden I have something I can lean on and say, regardless of what I see and what I hear, I know I'm protected. You see, my thinking is going, it's changing, it's going outside of that conformity, that indoctrinated feeling like if you don't have this, you're not safe. Yes, we still have to be careful and we need to do what we need to do because we have brains and we can think. But my thinking is different. Now I'm thinking this way. Well, what are you talking about? So go up. When you go up, belongingness and love need self-worth and positive image. I know who I am in Christ. I was made in his image. First and foremost, he loves me, therefore I'm loved. You see, my reference changes, my framework becomes different. I'm not necessarily looking at, well, if so-and-so looked at me this way, and if I didn't have that many friends, and if, then I'm not loved. That's not where I'm at. My foundation, that my thinking, the deeper thinking, and the meaning goes higher. Now, my satisfaction, my resting point to know that I am loved isn't when somebody smiles at me, isn't when somebody says, oh, you're so beautiful, oh, let me do this. Yes, all those things are good. You can tell me I'm beautiful. But I already know I was made in his image. I was loved before anybody else. Never changes. Go up, esteem, prestige. At this point, who I am and what I've accomplished and the person that I was made to be, I am already accomplished. Because he had a purpose and a plan in creating me. I was put in this earth for a reason. I am doing and I am being what he set out for me to be. And if I can think that way and if I believe that, then I live with purpose. I am a person that has a purpose. For nothing will be impossible with God. Now, I have a different frame of reference. The world tells me you best have a degree. You best have some kind of title. You better be of such and such class. You better be from such and such and such and such status. You best be such and such last name. That's when you could say, accomplished. Oh, I went to such and such school. You feel accomplished. That's the learned thinking. That is what we're framed to think. That is how we are actually structured and programmed to think. And when you recognize that you're created to think a certain way, you were created and made with a purpose, and you start thinking, you're thinking, I'm already accomplished. I'm already set. The plan isn't mine. The purpose isn't mine. From the wombs of my mom, before I was born, from inception, he had a plan for me, and he knows how he's going to get there. He's going to get me there. See how the thought process changes? That's what it's called intentional. Intentionally, when something tells me, and then I'm like, but something else tells me right here, this. So at this point, I'm content. With whatever I have, I am content. With whatever I accomplished, I am content. Whether I have 10 degrees or 1 degree, I am content. Whether I have one home or no home, I am content. With what I have become, the person that is Mamay is, I am content. It's just the most beautiful place to be, just to be content with what you have, who you are. Take a look at where you're sitting at right now. Take a look at your closet. Take a look at what you have behind you. Would that make you feel content? Because that style is going to change tomorrow. The thing you're carrying right now, you're feeling so valuable, isn't going to be so valuable. But knowing that somebody had paid an incredible price to give you that value, gives you that contentment. This is how we're renewing the thinking. I'm not going to be depressed. I'm not going to be so anxious because I am made beautifully and fearfully. See? Self-actualization opened up. See, it's just not like, I'm not trying to say me, myself, and I, right there at the tip, right there at the pyramid, just the top, self-actualization, and you're looking down. The world opens up with this. Because now I see higher and internal purpose created in God's image. And I look around and I see everybody just the same way. So I'm not thinking, look where I'm at. I'm saying, wow, look what life is about. Look where we're at. You see how it opens up? It's just not about being in that little teeny tiny top where I'm looking down to say I'm accomplished. Looking down to feel like I've done anything and everything that I'm supposed to. I am taken care of. I am good. Look at here. Look what I have. Versus what makes me accomplished, what makes me feel higher than high, is I know that I am created beautifully and fearfully. Now I want you to pay attention to this side of the screen. I think my right, your left. At the very bottom, give us this day our daily bread. Yes, we were told to do that, and that's something that we do. Look at the birds. Go outside and see. They don't do anything to clothe themselves such gracefully, because he takes care of them. If he could do that for the birds, how much can he do for you is the concept. So we are settled. We are content. We are good because we know for what I eat, oh, I'm sure he cares because he told me he does. If he's going to take me higher and higher and higher for a higher purpose, I'm pretty sure he cares about me being fed. But the thinking is different. You see that? A man shall not live with just bread. No information. Yeah. But give us this day our daily bread. See? It's like, it's a solid ground. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. You want protection? Here's a protection. I have loved you, says the Lord. My favorite statement. Nobody can take that. Nobody can change that. I don't care if the entire world decides to just all of a sudden wake up and say, we don't like Mommy. I am loved by the King of Kings. I'm loved, first and foremost. If I can drink that, and if I could swallow that, and if I feel my belly and my heart and my spirit and my mind with that, I'm okay. Contentment. Never will I leave you. Never will I forsake you. So it doesn't matter, like I said, you may not have all the baggages that the world says you should have. You may not be the thing that everybody says or that conformity says you better be. But then the thinking becomes, I'm never going to be left or forsaken. I'm not alone in anything and everything that I'm going. Yes, challenges are out there. Yes, we go through things. But in all that, if we could renew the thinking and the thought process and where we had ourselves conformed and renew it in the valley, in the darkness, in the desert, in the loneliness, in the doubt, in all the things that we feel, we could lift ourselves higher and higher. The more you depend on it, the more you feed yourself, not just your head, your heart, your spirit, all these things, that is absolutely true and foundation. You can only be stronger. The last thing that I have right here, it says, higher than the highest heavens. That's how high your tender mercy extends. I wish I have a better way of explaining it. Higher than the highest heavens. That's how high your tender mercy is. Now, when you think about higher than high, I'm pretty sure based on what we talked about and how language has changed and how it evolves and how it means different things, I'm sure our brains went so many different ways. Yes, it's true. It means that too. But think about it. Higher than high is who we are in Him. Higher than high is when you know how much that grace lifts us up. Higher than high is how mercy and grace is extended. Can you imagine? It don't matter what happens. It really don't matter what you have or don't have, what you've done and didn't do, where you've been, and all the different things that we can talk about, the skeleton we have in a closet. Oh, if you only know Mame, who I am. Oh, trust me, we all have those skeletons, but His mercy extends higher than high. And that's where we get lifted up. That's where the high is, the true high, higher than high. You go up and up and up and say, by the way, Mama, I'm really accomplished. I've got this. I know. Yes, I'm telling you. Yes, euphoria. I understand. Yes, you know, when you look at what you have behind you and what you've accomplished and what you've collected, it might make you feel some type of way. But the highest high we all feel is when you know the mercy of God. How much that grace takes you up, where it takes you up, regardless of where you've been and who you are and how you think and how you conformed to anything. Grace lifts you up. To me, that's the highest of high. People have turned to drinking alcohol. People have turned to substance abuse. People have turned to all kinds of things to feel that euphoria, to feel that high, to numb themselves and to just lift themselves up and just float in their mind and say, I don't care what I don't have. I just feel like I'm above it all. Think about it. If you only know where I've been, what I have done, the type of person I am, but grace. This is the reason why we need to renew the mind. The high that we seek sometimes does not come from what we think or where we think it comes. It's not from the material. It's not from the little things that we put in our mouth. It's just not. If we could imagine that, it doesn't do any harm to you. It only lifts you up higher than high because it's grace. You can fall 7 times and he will lift you up every time. You can find yourself flat in your face. You could say, oh, but Mamay, I've done this and I've been there, but grace. How do we renew our mind? It says, do not be conformed to this world, but transformed by the renewal of your mind. If I didn't do anything today, I just want you to think for a moment, something has been there. How can we renew that? You have heard all kinds of things. We've been told all kinds of things. You are weak. You are not this. You are not that. You lack this. You don't have that. Maybe you are this. The true word, that's a foundation. That's the framing of who we are. And that's where our thinking is. And the only thing that can renew our minds without necessarily altering it for the worse is the true word of God. Do not conform. To this day, you and I are conformed to something. The thing that we've been told when we were a child, maybe teenagers, maybe adults, somebody had said something, a teacher said something. We still remember, and we actually truly believe it. It's in the back of our heads. Every time something comes up, it comes up front. Interpreting life through the lenses of truth rather than through the lenses of our experiences, good, bad, or ugly. Our trials, our traumas, our disappointments, preferences, desires, and wants that just disappointed us, and opinions of others. How do you see what lens do we have right here? And how do we renew our mind? That height that we seek, that high that we want is given just with grace. Just with grace. Higher than the highest heaven. That's how your tender mercy extends. If we could just take that today and delete everything out, because I know I am this kind of person. I know I am that kind of person. I've been told this, and I know this about me. There is this learned, conformed, indoctrinated, structured, programmed thinking. Every time the wind blows by me and something happens and somebody says something, my world crashes. But grace takes you up, lifts you all the way up, higher than high, higher than any high you have ever experienced. I can tell you, that is the height. That's where the renewing of the mind needs to happen. First and foremost, grace. Hold on to grace. Hold on to grace. So before I wrap this up, I have a question for you guys. How do we move from conformity to renewal? Are we in living, saying, staying confirmed in the stuff that holds us back? Is so heavy, can't do nothing about it, can't tell people, obviously, because then they'll judge me. How do you renew that? Just thinking about grace. Through grace, if you only know what it means to be lifted up through grace. When everybody thinks you're about to go flat in your face, he lifts you up. Just when you think this is it, I'm done, I can't take this, grace lifts you up. Just when you say, you know what, this is about to crush me, grace takes you higher. It's just the renewing of the mind. When everybody seems to be turning their back on you, there is one that never does that. And it's for good. It's not for a season, it's for eternity. Grace lives for eternity. Question. Have we, and trust me, I have even in preparing this lesson, recognized a learned, intentional, or doctrinated thought process that we intend or we tend to conform to? Did we catch anything that we say, you know what? Yeah, I see that. Did this help you see any of that? Are we able to renew that and say, you know what? I understand people said this. I understand situation said that. I understand my condition said this. I understand that other thing said this. I understand the devil said this, but now I know how I could actually recognize my own thought process and renew it with the right kind of thinking. Which, by the way, the thing that takes you all the way high, higher than high, is grace. If you're willing to share, can you share at least one thing that you know you can renew? Mirror, mirror on the wall. Do you see grace in me at all? Do you see grace in you? Do you see grace in others? Higher than high. Thank you.